Our theme this month is practical wisdom. And today's topic is God on demand. A member of our center shared with us last week that there was a YouTube feed online titled God on Demand. So I went online and I checked it out because it's a kind of get your attention phrase, don't you know? God on demand. Well, it was not what I expected online, or maybe not what I would present here. So I am using literally none of what I saw and heard on Facebook, those blogs, and an assortment of YouTube acts. But the title, God on Demand, with an explanation point, and the title, God dash on demand, question mark, are two very different topics. And my talk this morning is on the latter, God dash on demand, question mark. So let me start by telling you, this is an anonymous quote sent to me yesterday by a friend who processes those things and sends stuff all the time. But this particular quote sort of applies to what I just said a moment ago about how you frame or phrase words. Here's the quote. I got called pretty today. Well, actually, the full statement was, you're pretty annoying. But I only focus on the positive things. So, where God, or whatever you call your source of being, is concerned, how would you phrase it? What would you focus on? The word demand can be interpreted in many different ways, even through our tone of voice. Here are some examples. A demand can be a question. It can be a request. It can be an inquiry or an interrogation. It can also be authoritative, insistent, brusque, or a challenge. As a metaphysician, which of those approaches would you use? Should you decide that God was on demand? Or are you more creative? Here's my favorite. To claim with proper authority as a right. Because on demand to me is sort of like my cable TV on demand channels. When I choose to activate them for my own usage, I access them and I use them. Same with Divine Spirit. It's always available to me. I just have to activate it and use it for my highest and best purpose. And that, to me, my dear ones, is practical wisdom. Way back in 1993, where did I put that book? Back in 1993, a man named Kennedy Schultz wrote a book titled You Are the Power, a guide to personal greatness. Now, just as a matter of interest, well, of interest to me anyway, 1993 was 2 years before I knew anything about science of mind. Metaphysics, practical wisdom, new thought, or a God that worked for me. Didn't know any of that. And it was 10 years before I knew the book existed or read it. It was a gift to me from the retiring minister at the Porterville, California Center for Spiritual Living when I replaced him there. And as I read through it, I found a section titled A New Way to Talk to God. By then, I had been a Science of Mind minister for almost 4 years. So the concept wasn't new to me, But I realized that Reverend Dr. Kennedy Schultz was speaking to the world's civilization, not just me, and not just my congregation. So here are his words. When we bring ourselves to the point in our lives where we think well enough of ourselves, believe enough in ourselves, in life, and in God, that allows us to stand face to face with the universe and know that all the good we seek is at hand. When we reach that point, we're demonstrating the consciousness that easily fulfills our desire. When we announce that we are open, receptive, and entirely worthy of our good, when we proclaim with faith that we expect our good comes forth. Because this is the consciousness that heals, that blesses, and that prospers all of life. Dr. Schultz went on to say, this takes practice. But we are always practicing something, so why not practice this? As I read through his words, it felt like looking at a painting or a picture of somebody I knew and reacquainting myself with them by revisiting their image. Because we know this stuff, don't we? It's practical wisdom. And we know that our source of being flowing through us is always on call when we call it forth. Whether we call that a demand or a loving reacquaintance with, or perhaps even a daily coming together with Spirit, it's all good in that we are in sync with our universal source. Some of you heard that song we were playing before the service started this morning. And in that song was reference to universal source. And I'll talk some more about that in a moment. So here's an exercise for you. What were you most in sync with this past week? How about yesterday? How about early this morning? In Wayne Moore's song that we played before the service started, titled, I Hear Something, he uses the phrase, I am one with the universal song. It hums and dances in my heart. It hums and dances, and I'm a part of everything and everyone. The universal song. It's like turning up the TV on, or turning up the volume on your TV on-demand channel when there is something that you really want to hear. And it's like turning up your on-demand God channel. Only your on-demand God channel has two-way communication. You knew that, of course. Two-way communication. You speak, and divine intelligence responds in a myriad of ways so that you can claim with proper authority as a right your intention. Oh, and by the way, there is no monthly invoice sent to be paid for your God channel. Comes with a package. You, upon your arrival here in this plane of existence. So if this is true, why doesn't everybody have a God channel? Well, why doesn't everybody have on-demand channels on their TV? Why doesn't everybody have a TV? We can ask ourselves these questions about other people if we choose. But it is simply deflecting from our own actions when we're not exercising our own opportunities. It's kind of like that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Or you can give a man a fish. Well, you know the rest of that one. It's because spiritual wisdom can only awaken from within. It's because every person's on-demand channel to God can only be turned on by them. And it's because the practical application of any skill, any talent, any gift must be viewed that way by the user in order for it to be accepted, appreciated, and used. Ernest Holmes reminds us that there is a principle of growth and development in the universe which continually seeks greater impression and expression. Nothing in life can remain static. You knew that. And though the sky is the limit, metaphorically speaking, each one of creation's individuals starts at his or her own level and goes on from there. We must also keep in mind that growth and development, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, involves change. Every living thing must display the dynamic quality of change. Every living thing must display the dynamic quality of purposeful progression, which is another way of saying change. In the plant kingdom, that's pretty much a given, isn't it? In the animal kingdom, outside the human species, it's also pretty much a given. With the human species, however, there is seemingly a dichotomy. That is to say, a division or contrast between two things that are or are being represented as being opposed or entirely different. So what do I mean by that? Here's how Holmes described that. In our physical bodies, cells unite and divide through the purposeful action of life, resulting in a fully developed body, with each cell serving a particular purpose and function. Wow! He wrote that in 1958, almost 50 years before Bruce Lipton published Biology of Belief. Isn't that interesting? And Holmes went on to say that all of the above growth and change is through infinite mind functioning as intelligent law. However, over and above the purely physical aspect of the growth and development of all things, including humans, something new and different makes its appearance in the human being. In the human, there is an additional channel for growth and increase. It's called self-consciousness. Hence, we discover in the function of mind, in the creative activity of thought, a continual urge to express. The forms and outlets for this self-conscious process of thought, which appears as a unique creation of life in humankind, may manifest in many ways. That's called unlimited diversity, the handiwork of God. We are blessed with an advanced form of consciousness as well as unconscious or subconscious thought. They're both self-conscious, self-unconscious. Perhaps for some of us, this answers the question, why do other people act the way they do? So the age-old question is, though, how's that working for you? This appears to me to be the point at which I must declare, God, I claim with appropriate and proper authority my right to, and then state whatever my intention is by this claim. For those of you who use the standard steps of spiritual mind treatment, that's step number 3. It's then followed by step number 4. And that is, I accept that I am deserving of this change right here, right now. You know, Ernest Holmes wrote over 40 books related to the science of mind in his time here with us in this plane of existence. And I find something new and expanded in every one of them, including this small and very powerful practical application of the science of mind. It's almost like he wrote the 1926 edition, edited it for 1938, and it's stayed the same ever since. And then here came all these additional books, which gave us some easier entry paths into deeper understanding. In this book, he reminds each of us that we each interpret and use the urge for greater expression. All of those are urges of the indwelling intelligence. And some of them cause us to choke or beat down. Others of us choose to rise and give expression. But we never stand still. So we are either impelling or repelling. And each of us gets to choose individually how we do that, when we do that, and why we do that. And also to accept why others don't. Robert Burns, a name probably familiar to you, a Scottish poet and lyricist, with tongue-in-cheek said it this way: everything is in a state of flux, that is, moving back and forth. Everything is in a state of flux, including the status quo. I believe that having a partner called spirit, divine intelligence, creative energy, God, or my source of being is a positive asset in my life. The universal laws, of which there are many, are all steeped in order, and that my use of them consciously or unconsciously direct the changes that occur in my experiences. It's like standing on the bank of a river and watching it flow by. I become aware of the fact that the river never changes, but its content is always new, flowing. By analogy, Dr. Holmes suggests the purposeful, dynamic quality of life within us never changes, but the content of our experience of living never remains the same. And so it is.